Microphone on, everyone.
Because the road's in bad condition.
It is 6:30, and I'm calling the Plainfield Township Planning Commission to order. First on our agenda is to make sure everybody's microphones are on. Okay, great. Your green light should be lit. And then the approval of the agenda. Any changes in this? Additions, Peter? Elizabeth, nothing? Nope, anything from up here? No? Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion at this time.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Brian. Support?
Support.
And that was Jim, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next is approval of the meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2022. And of course, if you have any changes, minor changes, grammar, syntax, please make sure to give that to Peter or Elizabeth, but I'll take a motion at this time.
I'll move the minutes.
Thank you, Jeff. Support?
I'll support.
Thank you, Brian. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Next is public comments. We have two public here. Anything you want to say, gentlemen? Okay, great, thank you. I'll close that portion of the meeting. Number 5 is agenda items. Major PUD amendment. This is a public hearing for Mercy Health PUD located at 6120 Northland Drive Northeast. And Mr. Coster, would you read the application, please? Sorry. Carl.
Project name, Mercy Health PUD amendment. Applicant, Steve Whitty, on behalf of RJAV Properties LLC. Project address, 6120 Northland Drive, 6050 Northland Drive, and 6070 Northland Drive. Permanent parcel number, 411014477006, 411014451004, 411014477007. Size of site approximately 27.4 acres. Zoning Mercy Health PUD planned unit development. Project description and action request of the Planning Commission. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the Mercy Health planned unit development PUD to update various sections of the Mercy Health PUD ordinance to reflect the updated development plans, including building location, size, and design standards.
Okay, thank you. Someone here from the applicant want to talk to us about your request?
Commissioner, my name is Steve Whitty from Ederveld, here tonight representing RJAV Properties LLC. RJAV.
Is that mic on? Does not sound like it.
About now. Oh,
Yeah.
green light is on, so I'll start over. Again, my name is Steve Whitty from Ederveld, here tonight representing RJAV Properties LLC, as well as Boulder North LLC. With me in attendance is Doug Bauer from Boulder North. I'm sure you're very familiar with this. I was just in front of you a month or so ago, where the remainder of the Mercy Health PUD, namely the 6120 Northland Drive, was brought to you to seek amendment at that time to have a total of 5 buildings on that property. That was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission and then subsequently approved by the Township Board. If you remember when we were here last time, Township staff had indicated that there's some house cleaning that really needs to happen with the PUD because I believe there was kind of conflicting documents from prior PUDs on this property. So since that time, we have officially applied for the veterinary clinic. That's going to be Unit 1, or the kind of the southwest unit as shown on the overall conceptual plan. And then at that same time, as again part of the house cleaning or housekeeping procedure with the township, it was suggested that we come in front of you again for a PUD amendment to kind of clean up the PUD narrative associated with the overall PUD. So I'll let city or township staff go over the specifics of that, but it's kind of summarized just a number of minor changes. And I can go over those in more detail, or township staff can. As far as Unit 1 is concerned, I did submit the full site plan set. We were hoping to talk in length with you tonight about that, but my understanding is we would need to first get over or past the big picture items. So I won't take up all of your time talking about the specifics of the veterinary clinic site unless you'd like me to. So with that, I'll stop talking, but if you have any questions, on the overall plan or any concerns with the overall plan. I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. If you want me to get into the specifics of the veterinary clinic, building location, driveway location, dog run area, building architecture, anything like that, I'd be more than happy to talk about those items with you as well tonight. And then our intent is to hopefully get past the PUD amendment tonight, get some direction from you as far as the general layout, primarily of the veterinary clinic site, but then also in general and everything. And then next month, I'll be in front of you for the specifics of the veterinary site. And then also, I will be submitting this Friday for Unit 5, which is the easternmost site, and that's going to be West Michigan Dermatology. So at next month's meeting, we'll talk about that one as well. So thank you again.
Elizabeth, is this your project? Peter?
Hello. Well, as Steve alluded to, this is sort of a two-part request. The first part, of course, I want to address, we updated a lot of the grammatical problems and some transfer issues that happened between the different PUDs and made adjusted the language so it corresponded to what the real-life experience is out there with the property. Just a couple of the key things that we did staff-wise is we updated the term in the original ordinance to amend. It was medical and administrative offices. Administrative is probably not quite broad enough, or maybe just a little bit too generalized in some ways, and so we have a definition for professional offices within the zoning ordinance, and so we recommended, or we're recommending adjusting that so it says professional offices. Yeah, and then that gives us something, a clear definition to work with rather than trying to guess in the future. We eliminated, and this is a biggie, we eliminated the lot coverage requirement. This is now up to the discretion of the Planning Commission. What we ran into with this is there was an original lot coverage requirement or lot limitation, but then subsequent plans ignored that on the development plan. So we had no consistent plan to go by. So rather than try to meld the two together, we just decided to, and we're recommending for you folks that we just leave it up to your discretion as each plan comes forward. The next one is there were no specific setbacks laid out in these plans. There were some shown on the plan, but there was not a specific defined setback in the ordinance to amend. So what we did is somewhat modeled after the MXU is we did a modified RBL line for the front yard setback and from the service drive, and all other setbacks are discretionary to the Planning Commission upon site plan approval. So your side yard and your side corner essentially would be the Planning Commission. You can decide what you want that to be. I say updated legal descriptions. What had happened in the transfer is the legal description from the original became distorted when it was exported back and forth between PDF and Word files, so it had to be updated, as well as a number of terms and formatting issues that occurred over the years. We also added a section in there about how staff addresses minor changes to the PUD because those were not put in the original, and since this was a PUD, it had predated our new ordinance, we thought that was important to put that in there. And several conditions of approval or in the ordinance amendment have been in there for some time. I think the main one was a traffic layout for this development. Things have been completed, we removed because they're no longer necessary. So in short, we made a lot of modernization, and this is the practice we've been doing since we adopted a new PUD ordinance to update some of our older PUDs as we revisit them through time. We've done that with the Valley, and we also did that with the retirement community on Belmont and West River and Jupiter Avenue a few years ago. It gets a little complicated when we're pushing all these together and trying to make them work with what's happened over time. But so that's the gist of that. Since this is two parts, is there any comments or any concerns you have about what we've done with this so far?
Hang on until I check if there's any kind of.
Okay, yes.
Oh, and you're all set with your comments, Peter?
On that part, and then I was thinking maybe do the second part.
Okay, well, this is a good time to open this up for the public hearing. This is a time and place set for it. Anyone? I won't go any further. I'll close that portion. Thank you. Okay, Peter, just so I don't forget to close things. What did you want to update us on?
Well, are you comfortable with the term professional offices there? Back in the day, it was a big heated issue about what kind of offices we will be. Right now, it reads medical and administrative. We're changing it to medical and professional offices.
You have a definition of professional?
Yes, we have it's consistent with, there is not a definition to administrative in our ordinance. There's a definition for professional offices. I wanted it to be, say, specifically professional offices, in part because of Carl. Because Carl, every time we do the one off of Belding Road there, remember when we had the hair salon and that? And those questions come up about what is a service versus what is a office. That's what we wanted to make sure here. Because I remember from the public hearings for Advantage Health years ago, it was very specific. They did not want service types of hair salons and things like that.
Any other comments, thoughts regarding that, Brian?
I got just one.
Carl?
Peter, in your narrative on the bottom of page 1, you say, after third reviewing the site plan for the vet clinic, and I take it to be the vet clinic, staff determines that we cannot provide a complete review. If staff can't give us a complete review, should we postpone this?
Actually, what we did is we essentially postponed Steve's site plan for the vet clinic so we can knock out some of these issues in the ordinance to amend so he has the guidance, we have the guidance to move forward.
So if we approve or deny, what are we approving or denying?
You're recommending to the township board to make these changes to the ordinance amend, and Steve can use those as a guideline for his site plan development.
Okay. I was reading both and I'm going, okay, this says we can't do it, this says we can't do it, which do we do?
We gotta do the cart before the horse first.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm fine, thank
Okay,
you.
anybody else, Jack?
Take it now, Peter, that we're not going to rule on the vet clinic then tonight, we're
No.
just the changes.
Yeah, Steve has several minor site amendments on this. We want to make sure you're comfortable with those. We can discuss those after we get to the meat of this, if that's okay with you folks.
Dennis, anything?
Nothing at this time.
Do you, Carl, have anything?
I'm all set, thank you.
Jim?
Nothing here.
Brian?
No. I'm all set.
Any further discussion regarding the request to amend the Mercy Health Plan unit development, Jim? Talking about bifurcating this hearing between the vet clinic and the changes. In relation to the actual request for the amendment to the Mercy Health Plan unit development, any questions, Jim?
No.
Brian? No. Kerwin?
No.
Carl?
No.
Dennis? No. I don't know why I want to call you George all the time. Thank you,
Call me
Jack.
whatever you want.
Thank you.
Just call me for dinner.
That's right, thank
Probably
you.
been called worse, right?
I have no questions either, and I will take a motion at this time.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend the Township Board approve the Mercy Health PUD ordinance to amend 6120 Northland Drive, 6050 Northland Drive, and 6070 Northland Drive.
Thank you. Any additions, conditions? No, I didn't hear us talk about any. I'll take a support at this time.
I'll support.
Brian, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, that's set. Now, if I understand you correctly, you want some feedback on the veterinary clinic building.
Correct. When we actually submitted a full site plan set for the vet clinic site, and then in talking to township staff, last week it was determined to postpone that to, again, kind of keep the horse in front of the cart, so to speak, as you had indicated. But any feedback that you can give me as it relates to the vet clinic site, if you have any questions or concerns or comments, I'd like to hear that now so that when we're in front of you next month, hopefully it at that time can be approved versus being tabled at that time. So,
Well, that's fine. I'm willing to have us all discuss that. I just want you aware of the fact that we were not provided any site plans for
Okay.
that building.
fair enough.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, Kerwin, do you have any feedback, suggestions?
Offhand, my initial comment would be just to try to maximize the driveway isolation between the traffic circle and the right in, right out off from Northland Drive there.
Okay,
Separation is your friend. It allows people to compensate for distractions.
yep,
Minimize trying to occupy the same space simultaneously.
yep.
Carl, do you have any comments?
Well, my comment was traffic as well. Leaving the site, we can either come down to 7 Mile if they go that way, but if they turn and go north on Northland and want to go south on Northland, they're going to go up to that turnaround that we've had discussions in the past that may not exist for a long period of time and to go south. Just, you know, and I agree with Kerwin, we need to make that a little bit, that, what they call pork chop, T-bone, whatever you want to make, a little bigger so they gotta go this way and they gotta go that way. But just, that's just a comment that people going northbound that want to go southbound are gonna go up and use that turnaround that
Sure.
technically there, but technically not supposed to be there, so. Other than that, I like the alignment of the buildings as you're proposing them, and when we get the site plan, we'll take a review.
Okay.
Okay, Dennis, do you have any comments?
On the vet clinic, no, the format looks fine to me. The overall layout, I guess we'll talk at a different time about that.
Okay, thanks. Jack?
I take it you have one entrance and only one from East Beltline?
There's one drive entrance. Yeah, there's one drive entrance. It's off that shared drive between the turnabout and the Northland Drive entrance. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah, it's hard to tell from this drawing, but
Yeah,
you've got a driveway coming out and it dead ends. You don't have anything north that's coming out the East Beltline, right?
This here is the circular turnabout existing, and then this is the entrance off of Northland Drive, which is existing. Our proposed drive entrance is here. If you look back at the plan that I submitted last month, the drive entrance had been over here. The concern with this location, it was directly underneath the overhead line, so we wanted to move it here. But this would be the only entrance and exit point to this site.
Yeah, I was talking about the entrance to the East Beltline. There's no possibility of having an additional entrance to East Beltline farther north.
No,
Like, I think you're,
way up here.
no, you're talking about this road goes.
Yes, yeah, that road kind of dead ends.
Correct, yeah, that was one of the comments that staff had actually at the last meeting, that they had suggested possibly having a connection to Butternut Drive through here. I did bounce that off the road commission because Butternut is public county road. The road commission's indication was that they would prefer not to have that drive entrance. They didn't outright say no. They said if the township really wants it, then we can talk more. But their initial indication was that they would not like that. West Michigan Dermatology, which is gonna occupy this Unit 5, their preference would be also not to have a connection there. But then, like I said before, this Friday I am submitting the site plan for that site as well. So next month, at the planning commission, we can talk about that more too, and then you can decide, you know, hey, sorry, you need to make that connection, or hey, we're okay not having that.
I know I'm getting ahead of myself, and I understand that. It's just,
Yeah.
when I think of fire and things
Yep.
like that, it's always good to have two entrances, and
Yep.
I see one to that, so.
And for what it's worth, at the last meeting, last public hearing, there was a neighbor in attendance at the meeting. She did not talk at all, but then she followed Doug and I out into the concourse, and she said, oh yeah, I don't like the idea of that drive connection. But that was one of the neighbors that, I think she lived in one of these houses down here, but, yep.
Oh, hang on just a minute. Brian, anything?
I just, talking about this traffic, does the township see any issues once all 5 buildings are put in with just having the one driveway going to Northland and the one going to 7 Mile, given the other buildings that are already there also, the Mercy Health and the retirement community, I believe it is?
The development was designed with, and I believe there was an initial traffic study with it, with the intent of having these buildings there. So I don't have any initial concerns on that. Certainly, we'll have to run it by the fire department when we get to that. During the public hearing way back when, it was a heated issue about the connection to Butternut, and if the road commission is not supportive of it, I tend to think that it's probably a no-go on that regard. I don't know if that answered your question completely, but
I was just wondering if there was any concerns about traffic with the existing driveways.
staff's concerns with traffic range with not so much that this particular use or any use in there is going, any of this office type of use is going to be a huge impact. It's more the intersections, and we've had this discussion with MDOT several times, the intersection there needs to be updated or upgraded, as is a significant cost, and it's not in the plans of MDOT at this point in time, from my understanding. So, I think that's a much broader issue for the township to deal with, probably over the next 20 years.
That's all I have.
Nothing more to add. I had the same curious mind about connecting out to Butternut and then out to Brewer to get additional access to the area and the development, but it doesn't seem to have much traction, so we'll move on.
Carl, you had a question?
Peter, some time ago, and it could be several years, the two parcels between this and Buttersweet came before us and we approved two developments on each one of those sites. Did they both fall through?
They came in with a proposal to rezone the property, which was done. They came in with a development plan for one. He has not moved forward with any of that, but they are potentially ready for development. And then there's the one single-family house stuck in between them.
Correct, okay, so that's sort of in limbo.
So that was the logic why staff brought that up the last time we discussed it, because you are gonna have office along that frontage, and in the long term, I think that there's gonna be a proclivity for people to want to be able to connect through there, so what I'm thinking about, just spitballing here, is when we do ultimately do the site plan on the end, we reserve that as a potential connection, meaning it can't be closed in perpetuity, so we can see to be open if we need to do so in the future.
Okay.
All set?
Yep.
Anyone else, any other questions? I don't see anything else we can help you with?
No, I'm all set. I really appreciate your time tonight, and we'll see you next month.
I did have one question for everybody on this real quick. One of the things that we had with the development plan was all the buildings are supposed to be up towards the street and the parking in the back. We are comfortable with the parking as it's arranged on this site?
I think it goes along with the reimagined Plainfield, so I like that.
Okay.
The way they're laying this out with the buildings towards the street and the parking either side or back. Seems like what we were aiming for in other areas, so I think this helps.
In particular, what I'm talking about is the vet's parking is kind of up in the front there.
But it's on the side,
side?
it's the side and around the back, I
Okay.
think, which is better than just having the building to the back of the lot and all the parking up front, which seems to be the way it goes quite often, so.
Okay.
Yeah, Dennis.
Within the site plan, there's a box saying that there might be a sixth building.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Within the site plan, there's a box, and it talks about a sixth building on the site. That I must read that?
Back last month, if you remember, the development plan had shown and still shows 5 lots, and I had mentioned that depending on the demand, we might be back in front of you for a 6th lot. That's not the case yet.
Okay.
That still might be the case in the future. I might be in front of you 3 months from now saying, hey, we do have another user here.
Oh, okay.
But for now, it's still just the 5 lots.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, thank you all.
Next is the zoning ordinance text amendments. This too is a public hearing. Do you have an application for that, Carl?
No, I do not.
That must be from staff then.
Hey. So do you want me to just get going here? Okay.
Yeah, please.
So as promised, we've put together a list of zoning ordinance amendments that we, working through this document, realized need some updating. Some definitions were added and amended. We increased some architectural standards for single-family dwellings and accessory buildings. We have a lot of pole barn style, kind of agricultural looking accessory buildings that are popping up because they're relatively cheap to put up. So we're trying to kind of eliminate those, make them look a little bit more residential in character, especially for some of our smaller lot residential neighborhoods. And I do want to point out an error in the redlined document that I provided to you. Live entertainment is being proposed as a use subject to special conditions in light industrial and industrial zoning districts, not a special land use. The ordinance to amend is correct, but I noted it in error in this summary that I provided. So just a heads up on that. We did a lot of work in the light industrial and industrial zoning districts to try to regulate what actually is happening in light industrial zoning districts with the breweries and the desire for some light, outdoor entertainment, that sort of thing. So we added some land uses to try to reflect what the township and the consumer really want to see in light industrial zoning districts. So if you have any questions or concerns on those issues, happy to talk about it. You can make any recommendations to these amendments that you'd like.
It is a public hearing, and there's no one present here except us. And I'm going to assume that any comments will be under the commission comments, so let's start with that. So let's start with Jack.
George?
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate what you've done with this. The ordinance text amendment make things more usable. I could see that, and the way things are, and you've done a good job with that. I just wanted to say that. That's all I have to say.
Brian, anything?
Sort of the same thing. I just like the idea of constantly, fine tuning this just to clarify or, change things. I didn't see anything major changing in there. It was just the clarification, which I think is a great ongoing process that we need to continue to do.
Jim?
No, nothing more to add. I think I too am glad to see staff tweaking where they think it needs to be tweaked based on experience. We're only about a year and a half into the new zoning ordinance, and it seems to be performing well, and appreciate your efforts.
I've got some agricultural roots, and I really think that standing seam steel roofs and steel roofs in general are very appealing when done correctly. And so I don't want to have the township become the homeowners association for what can and can't be displayed on the roof of your house. Steel is eminently sustainable, to use the current vernacular, material for roofing, and I think when done correctly, it'd be okay. So is there a way that we could have our community director make sure that people aren't putting on multicolored roofs to just cheese off their neighbors and have those types of things allowed?
So are you having an issue with 3.11C?
3.11C and 3.11E.
But note that it's flat metal panels, because most metal roofs are corrugated, if you,
Well,
I guess is the proper
that's a
term.
distinction without a difference or a definition, and so.
So, Elizabeth, can you help Kerwin out with that?
Well, Pete tackled this one. Do you have,
Not sure what,
so,
Especially E, I guess E would be the one I would look at, but I looked at it as just flat sheets of metal as opposed to siding, metal siding that they put on the roof,
The
which
way
is very nice and very used quite
Hang on.
often.
the way I read it, the way I understood it, is that C permits what Kerwin's talking about, but E says you just can't put a flat, non-roughed surface on there. You can't just put a metal sheet on there.
because we do allow for steel roofs, galvanized, coated steel.
The intent is for that to allow what Kerwin's speaking of, I believe, but
What it
if there's
says is
language.
galvanized or galvalume, and so those are two specific coatings. Galvanized is, well, we know what that looks like, and galvalume is a trade name for the same item, and it doesn't allow painted steel roofs to be installed under this
So-
definition.
If we deleted those two and just put coated steel or non-ferrous, would that be acceptable?
That more broad?
Well, non-ferrous is aluminum. Yeah, ferrous means iron containing.
We can say, we can say from steel, we can just say metal roofs, if that works.
Right, it looked like the real recycled steel siding that I took off a roof this weekend.
But metal roofs, just deleting that small section there and just putting metal roofs would be permitted?
I don't want to preclude the use of the material.
Okay.
I understand the intent of the guidance so that we don't have a hodgepodge of roofs and colors and whatnot. We were trying to maintain some semblance in architectural standards. I'll let you have at it in that regard and let me just say clearly, I'd like that steel roofs be permitted because they are a very viable.
Yeah, and it's our intent to permit those. We thought that language got us there, but we can certainly clean that up.
We have we have discretion with J. Sorry.
We built in discretion, knowing that this isn't gonna solve every problem or every unique situation. That's why we put that last line on there to address anything that we didn't think of with this particular situation.
Okay, thank you. And that's the extent of my comments, Marie.
While we're on that particular item, item B says the main structure shall have a pitched roof. Pitch to me and pitch to somebody else may mean two different things. I mean, if you had 1%, it's a pitched roof. You could have 20%, it's a pitched roof. Are we gonna have any standard, or are we gonna allow any minimums, any what on there?
At one point, we had very specific regulations for pitches, and we found that a lot of this information kind of conflicted with building codes, so we eliminated some of it. So we could definitely look into more regulations for pitched roofs. I don't have anything off the top of my head that I would feel comfortable recommending right now. Do you, in terms of pitch?
Not off the cuff. I think what we'll do is we'll pull this from the ordinance for this go around, and we'll bring it back to you at a later date.
That was just a comment, people have different descriptions of pitched roofs.
I could see a minimum pitch. If somebody wants to make a A-frame building, that's up to them. It's not very
Well, I
practical.
was
But as
thinking-
far as, yeah, a 1%,
I was going to this,
yeah.
the very little slope.
But it's also, remember, pitch can be doesn't have to be this. One end can be higher than
Yep.
the other.
Exactly the case.
Jim, did I ask you if you had any comments?
Yeah, no, none.
And Carl, you're all set?
Just on that one, I got a bunch of other ones.
Oh, hang on. Dennis, anything you want to say?
I'm good with the cleanup.
Okay, go ahead, Carl.
On the very first one, where we talk about labs and technology center, a place devoted to experimental study, testing, or analysis, but not predominantly. I don't like the word predominantly. Can we just say, but not devoted to the manufacturing of a product? Why is predominantly there?
Yeah, what we're seeing is, these kind of hybrid light industrial buildings are mostly R&D or, research facilities, but some, test fabrication or test manufacturing. So they do usually include a light component of that. Are you looking for just like a percentage or?
Something more specific than predominantly.
Okay.
Would majority, again, because that's implying less than 50%.
Do we need anything at all? Predominantly is Just a comment. I'll continue. When we get down a little bit later, we talk about stables. and it talks about horses. But is that only for horses? And what about the sale of horses?
Boarding, breeding, rehabilitation, performing.
Of horses by the owners. It talks about horses only.
There's some donkeys in my neighbor's yard.
Well, I mean, it could be other types of domesticated animals. Like, you know,
Donkey.
donkeys, burros.
Stables by their very nature are a specific thing, although they can include mules and donkeys. But you're really looking at the riding aspect of that. Although I guess I've seen some people ride Brahma bulls too. But the bottom line is that this is only intended to deal with horse stables. Okay. The other things would be, and even sales is more of a commercial use. This is more, I mean, stables can be commercial, but the sales is a different aspect of a commercial use. You're looking at a livestock trading barn, something along those lines, auction facility.
Next item is, they don't have page numbers. Section 2103 is where I have my note. Are other outside areas opened until 10 PM, which is great, but we don't say what time they can open. I mean, you could open at 1 PM, you could open at 1 AM.
Oh, I see your point.
Now, all it gives is a closing time. You could open at 9 PM or 11 PM and go all day and then close for an hour. Just,
Sure, yeah.
yeah, something to conclude, because nowhere in the rest of this text do we talk about what time you can open. It's always what time you can close, which is great. Where are we going next? Section 2108A. Says the planning commission may require additional setbacks or other nuisance abating techniques, including increased landscaping or fencing or manufacturing process for assembly fields abutting any residentially zoned district or any lawfully existing residential. But it doesn't give us any standard, it doesn't give us anywhere to start from. Is a setback 5 and we can determine 10, or is the setback 40 and we can determine 30? There's no standard in there to start from. It
Well,
just says we can do what we want.
Well, the standard setbacks for light industrial would still apply. This is just giving you, so the setback is 25 feet?
5, I think.
Yeah, so if you have the stamping facility, for example, and you think that it's going to have a dramatic impact on a neighbor, then you have the opportunity to increase the setback, but more likely is you can require a different type of noise canceling type of structure or something out there. So what it's intended to do is give you the most flexibility as possible in dealing with specific uses.
So the standards that are in this later apply, and we can determine them to be different if we so choose.
Yeah, so what was there before was just the standard 100 feet from any residential district. And distance is great, but sometimes a fence or shrubs or a combination of distance and shrubber, like that works better. So
Okay.
this is just intended to give some flexibility.
Comments?
Yeah.
Chapter 26 floodplain overlay district amendments. 1 foot above the base flood elevation. What's the base flood elevation?
Site specific, but
Yeah, it's always gonna be site-specific, so it'll be based on whatever, whatever flood contour we have available at the time for that particular location.
You're not talking about 1 foot above the 100-year flood.
Well, essentially, but, I mean, it varies, as you well know, it varies from location to location
Location
up,
to
and yeah.
location, okay. But that's the assumed is
Yeah.
1 foot above the 100-year flood at that particular location.
Yes. So we take whatever cross-section we have available, measure off of that, or we'll get something that's from the engineer provided to us.
Okay. Section 2907. Part A, the last portion of the last sentence. The outside area shall be screened from view when abutting those zone districts to the extent reasonably possible. Again, subjective. The outside area shall be screened from view, period.
Yeah, if that's, I think staff's thought on that is they're always going to be a little bit visible. I mean, right? But if you want to say completely screened, we can definitely make that adjustment. Did you?
You don't want completely, you just wanted to say the outside area shall be screened from view,
Period.
period.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be 100% screened, as vague as we can be, but it needs a barrier.
Right.
Okay.
Part D of that section, have a minimum front or corner front yard setback of 30 feet if the planning commission determines that that said service area will not have an adverse effect. Again, Peter, I go to your stamping facility. Is 30 feet enough?
Not for stamping, in my
Then
opinion.
that goes back to the comment I had before, then do we have the opportunity in this whole new area of changing what's brought before us, or is 30 feet gonna be what we have to live with? Or can we, as the planning commission, say, we think it ought to be 50 because you're right next to 6 new houses?
That's the intent of that particular section, is that you can add additional setback in there if you're concerned to it. This way, so let me make sure it's where.
So yeah, it is the same thing where the setback for light industrial would still apply. It's 75 feet or 50, depending on what type of street you're on. And if they want to come as close as 30, and you guys think that wouldn't have an adverse effect, then you can say, okay, it can be up to 30 feet. But you would have to approve that, so.
But isn't that in the industrial district? It's, I think you're right, Elizabeth, it's 75 feet. So here we have 30 feet, but in the I district, we have 75 feet.
It's just a may, so it can go up to 30 feet only if you guys approve that. So it has to be 75 feet unless you say,
This is a business that doesn't make a lot of noise and we can go to 30 or something of that nature.
and this is only for artisan food and beverage production facilities, so,
Correct.
yeah, yep. Did you have?
Last one I have is section 30.28 C and E. And it is just I gotta find it now. Very last sentence, noise control ordinance shall be provided to the director. Who's the director?
The community development director. But you want it spelled out that way?
Well, we spell it out everywhere else but there,
Okay, yep.
and that just might be a little misconstrued, you know. Guess what? That's all the comments I had.
Good for you. Good work. I only have one question. Is artisan defined somewhere in the code? Because I had to look it up.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
great.
is, yep.
Good. All right. Any other questions, concerns?
I just wanted
Jack?
to make a comment. And I think trying to interpret what staff was trying to do with some of these, I know there's needing to be a balance between being vague and not specific, so that you can give flexibility to the planning commission to determine on a site basis what you need. So it's hard sometimes to achieve that flexibility. If you put in it has to be this, then you may want to vary from it in a specific property, and then your balance is off. So, it's hard to keep that in mind, that we want to balance that out. That kind of what you were trying to do with a lot of this stuff, Peter? And
It was our intent to give you as much flexibility as you could have with some of these, because just not every, we just run into so many sites that are so unique in the township, because we developed in different phases, and we thought, in our experience of dealing with a couple of these sites, it would be better to address the issues with some flexibility.
All right, I'll take a motion at this time.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend the Township Board approve the ordinance to amend for the proposed text amendments.
Do I have support?
Support.
Jim? Any further discussion?
Are we going to withhold section 3.11 pending some further review?
Would be my intent, so.
Okay,
Okay, that's the condition you want to add?
yes, please.
Okay.
I also want to say that just because I make the proposal, make the motion, doesn't mean when it gets to the board, I'm going to pass it. But just to make that, to move things along, sometimes I make a motion.
Can I also ask if everyone is okay with us making some of the minor adjustments that Carl brought up before it goes to the board? Like eliminating to the extent reasonably possible, changing the director to community development director.
That's why we brought it up, so that it could be changed.
Okay, awesome. Just wanted
And,
to make sure.
and they're so minor that I don't think we need any kind of conditions added to, unless
yeah.
someone disagrees with me. Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Any further comments, discussion? No? Hearing none, please, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same? All right, great.
Not sure we had a second to that motion, but I guess we.
Second was Jim.
Oh, you, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep. Next is staff comments.
It is that time. It's been 5 years since we did the last master plan update. And so we are going to be kicking that off here shortly, but we wanted to get your input on our two consultants that we have in retainer that we're recommending using here, and what your preferences are. One is Progressive A&E, which is Suzanne Schultz, and the other one is Andy, what's Andy's, Moore from Williams & Works. If you guys are comfortable with choosing one of them and moving forward with them, and who your preference may be. But that's the gist of things. We don't expect this to be a rewrite of the overall master plan, rather a kind of a targeted area for different sections of the township, which we'll get into in more detail as we move forward through discussions. So are you comfortable with Progressive A&E or Williams & Works?
Hasn't the township worked with both of them?
We have, and we do have them on retainer, so we don't need to do the, the publication and all that kind of stuff like we've
Well,
done past time.
I have no problem myself of leaving that decision between those two, because they've worked with the township in the past, and leave that decision to those, that need to make it. I'm comfortable with either one, is what I'm trying to say.
Leave it up to staff to choose
Sure, yeah.
which one they feel like to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fine with me.
I'm fine with that.
Anyone else?
I do have a brief update for you on a site plan you've seen recently. Plainfield Country Club planned the demolition of 2 buildings and the construction of a brand-new clubhouse facility that was brought before you earlier this year. And they have had to scale back the scope of their improvements. As you know, construction is unpredictable and costly right now. So it went from one giant building with a pool building addition here to an addition to the existing clubhouse. They're still demoing one building here and still doing the pool addition here. And they're starting demo on this building, this existing building, fairly soon here in May. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that in case you start seeing construction and it's not quite what you saw before. This is all, the amendment is able to be approved administratively, so it won't come officially before you, but we wanted to give you a heads up.
Putting up the temporary clubhouse on Rogue River soon then?
That too is going to be scaled way back, since they're able to leave some of this to facilitate some temporary operations in the existing clubhouse. So yes and no, they haven't quite decided how that's gonna work out yet, so.
That seems to be quite a significant change. My other question is, they are responsible for the, bike path in front of their whole property, which is probably $1 million fee. Have they said anything about that?
Yes, we've been in discussion with them and working on a cooperative agreement. Obviously, right now, that's too much of a bill to front forward, so, and it's not in a very timely fashion with our trails plan, right? So we're sitting down negotiating with them right now to figure something out for the future, the next 3 or 4 years, I believe, to help them fund that. And they have a lot more frontage than just on Rogue River to consider.
All the way
Yeah.
from Northland all the way to the river? That's
Russ,
all the property.
one of the things that we need to do is our sidewalk ordinance didn't consider sites quite like this, and there's several of them in the township. They're all unique. You got Scott Lake Golf Course and a couple other entities like that where it may be a bit onerous if you wanted to require the whole thing. So we're putting in there something to give the Cameron essentially some leeway to make decisions on that.
One of the comments in question was brought up that the sidewalk should extend on Northland from Rogue River to their entrance, because when they have their large events, people walk that stretch
Okay.
regularly by the hundreds. And I think that was part of a discussion we had at the Parks and Recs Trail Committee, that piece be something maybe done early on.
We are, that's a good point. I'm sure Bill will bring it up. We're working with Mike Hausman from Wolverine Construction, who's representing him on this stuff. So we're just in the infancy of getting that moving forward, but they are aware.
Planning Commission comments, I'll start. Jim, do you have anything?
Well, just back to the club here, there was some discussion about some housing becoming part of this development at some point in time. What happened with that?
It is my understanding that the funding source for this project was subject to that not happening. So maybe someday in the future, but not in short term.
George, Brian?
George.
Yeah.
Everybody's George.
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Jack, do you?
Yes, I asked the question at the board meeting last night. Refresh my memory, what's the name of the development on Cuts Hill, the new development on?
Ravines?
Yeah, Ravines. As a part of their PUD, they were committed to making a right-hand turn lane on Cuts Hill near the corner of Rogue River. That has since changed, and from what I heard last night, they are going to change Rogue River into a Michigan left turn. So they'll widen it, and so there will be no left turn from Cuts Hill to the light. It will all be right turns now, and when they finish that.
We'll have to then go turn around, so they'll
They'll have
have
to make a
west to
U-turn.
go east.
Yeah, that's correct.
Where are they gonna, if they make a right, there's no place to turn around.
They're widening, they're going to widen Rogue River.
And put a divided, so it'll be a divided road,
I would assume some sort of division would have to take place.
to make them, to force them to do the turn
Sure.
at the right place.
Yeah. So that, I wait, there are survey crews out there now, and I wait with anticipation to see what they're gonna do with that.
There isn't enough room, there's still a house there unless the county.
House for
bought
sale
that
there.
house.
We've-
People know that,
so they-
that house, that this is gonna happen. Yeah, the house on the corner.
It's for $2.5 million.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I sure hope those, that is all known
That,
before
is that
that.
the price of that house?
It's listed at 2 2.5 million.
That's a small house.
It's
And
a
it doesn't have a
three-bedroom,
garage.
two-bath
With a
house.
car-
Size
with
of
a
the house
carport.
makes any difference.
I was
Location,
thinking it was
location,
the
location.
gravel underneath that they were selling.
Well, I mean, these two lots here are the only two, this is where you gotta make it happen, is these two lots on the
Exactly.
south side of Rogue River.
And they're gonna take part of the north side too. Now, there's a right-of-way
Right at
to
the
the north
corner,
side
yeah.
too. So
I-
I don't quite know how they're gonna fit it, but that's the plan.
I spoke with the acquisition folks. They have indicated they don't need the additional right-of-way. They have secured some easements from the north side, and they may still be working with the country club to acquire a little bit more from them, but that's still in the works. And then they're in the process of designing it to make it work. It's still a possibility it falls through. So what we had done is that they're going to provide us, they provided us and the road commission an estimate for the cost of that right turn lane. We will hold that in escrow, so if everything falls through, then we will be able to still do that right turn lane. The problem is the right turn lane only alleviates some of the issue out there, and I think the solution the road commission has come up with here is ultimately what has to happen out there. It's just a matter of when. Unfortunately, the house in the corner there, it's ridiculous, but that's what she's listing it for.
They were hoping,
Amazing.
maybe they were hoping the country club would want to buy that. That might have been their,
They don't have pockets
knows?
that deep.
Peter, was there any
listings on
time frame
Zillow.
given to this?
Well, in the next year or so, they're still putting plans together, and like I said, they may not be able to ultimately do that, so I don't want to put words in their mouth quite yet, but it sounds, they have some additional federal money coming, and so this is something that has always been on their radar to fix, and if they can make it work, they will make it work.
I do notice the survey crews are out there, so.
Erwin, do you have any?
I have no knowledge of it, but I will say that a Jersey barrier exists because they created the original boulevard in the form of a barrier. Right it down the double yellow line, and that's how they delineate you gotta turn left or turn right to turn left. They just put a barrier right down the double yellow.
What it is.
Yeah.
Are you all set, Jack?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Dennis?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Almost George. Any comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay, did you have a chance already?
I'm all
Carl-
set.
Kerwin, are you all set?
Yes, ma'am.
My only comment was a $2.5 million house for sale here.
I
That's
can't
on
believe
Zillow, folks.
it. I can't.
Price
believe it.
supplies lately?
All right.
Have you price supplies
Oh, I
lately?
know.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, anything else? We're adjourned.